permission to come aboard I was going to say the Starship, the SSTESS, which I'm sure sounds with the SS, the European Soccer Show. Thank you everybody for joining us. With me, as ever, is Leo. Leo, lovely good afternoon to you there.
Hello, mon commandant. How are you?
Où est le pamplemousse? No, I'm fine, thank you. It's a lovely sunny day in Leeds, which feels like years since it's been the case.
Yeah, it's the same in Paris. It's been.
I hope wherever you're watching this from, people, the outside, I was going to say it's lovely, but you're watching this, so let's assume that it's horrible and you're staying inside to watch content. Speaking of content, let's give you the headlines for all the things we're going to be talking about today. In the Premier League, all that talk about Arsenal choking, well, they did. They choked on the bones of Tottenham Hotspur as they devoured them in the North London derby. In Spain, the lead at the top of the table changed again as Real Madrid went to the most informed side in the league and lost at Osasuna. In Italy, it was the week from hell for AC Milan and Juventus. Well, the week from hell, perhaps the week from Hellas Verona. It was that bad. Yes, AC Milan and Juve having a terrible, terrible week, meaning Inter go 10 points clear at the top of Serie A. In the Bundesliga, Bayern doing Bayern things, making the title race seem over. But the relegation battle opens up as St. Pauli pull a Mainz and try and pull themselves to safety. And in Ligue 1, you see the league leaders, Lens, dropping the ball, not literally, and Lyon coming down from their lofty heights in the clouds, 13 wins in a row, and that is it, as they lose against Strasbourg. Right, to begin things, we are going to pop into England. And since I already mentioned it, the North London derby, Tottenham Hotspur 1, Arsenal 4. Now, in midweek, Arsenal threw away a 2-goal lead against bottom of the table Wolverhampton Wanderers on Wednesday evening. And Wolves came from behind to draw 2-2, and thus the talk of Arsenal choking reared its ugly head once more. And of course, the talk before this, but even between us, we were talking about the potential choking hazard that was Spurs for Arsenal. However, Arsenal swallowed them whole, devoured them, etc., etc. That metaphor's got on hold. But Arsenal were fantastic, weren't they?
It was like one of the how can I say that? It's not usual to see Arsenal attack this way in the Premier League. We have noticed in the past weeks that they mainly rely on free kicks, headers, corners, and against Tottenham, I don't know why, or maybe the why, because it's obviously one of the games, the game of the season. They were really looking like an attacking side. Eberechi Eze scored a brace to put his total on 5 goals in 2 games against Tottenham. So now the situation is beginning to become difficult for Tottenham because they are not far away from the relegation zones, with only 4 points ahead of West Ham.
You mentioned it before about it being a bit surprising about Arsenal being such a fluid attacking side, but it's also a bit surprising Spurs, because of course it's been 9-10 days before this match that Igor Tudor was announced as the manager. That was expected to be. They had a whole week and a half to prepare for this. Of course, this is a new tactical idea. And there was talk about, would Arsenal be able to get to grips tactically with Igor Tudor's Spurs? But didn't like Spurs got to grips with Igor Tudor's tactics. It seemed a little bit muddled, didn't it?
Yeah, and especially since Igor Tudor's tactic is to press their opponent. He wants to put a lot of intensity, and I think Tottenham lacked of intensity against Arsenal. So it's obviously a problem in this kind of game, and it proved really difficult for them to being able to
compete. Yeah,
to compete
I would
with
say,
Arsenal.
Credit where credit's due. So, for those of you who didn't see the game, Eberechi Eze scored the opening goal for Arsenal before only mere seconds later, a Declan Rice mistake allowed Spurs to equalise through Kolomoani. But that came from Tottenham pressing, actually, didn't it? That goal came from them pressing high from the off. and forcing Declan Rice into a rare mistake. And it got to half time at 1-1. And I remember watching the game, looking at the stats and thinking, sort of being a bit confused, because even though it was 1-1 and feeling like, oh, Arsenal could throw this away, at that point, Spurs had only had one shot. Also, you have this feeling like, oh, Arsenal could throw it away, but also like it really only was Arsenal in the match. Spurs couldn't lay a glove on them. And I think someone made the very good point after the match, saying that in the first half, Arsenal were trying to create all these passing lanes, all these different patterns between some of the players. And then in the second half, they realised that essentially there was nobody in midfield, so they could just run through midfield.
Yeah, and one of the other points I've noticed from this game is that the four forwards of Arsenal were playing well together. They were like linked together, which hadn't been the case every time.
We saw the best of Gyökeres in the second half. Yeah. He scored only a couple of minutes after the restart. A beautiful finish from the edge of the area. So he got that goal. Eze got another, and Gyökeres got another. So they were the goal scorers for Arsenal. And we should probably point out as well, it seemed an odd choice. I think it was fairly predictable that Igor Tudor was going to play with a back three. But it seemed a strange choice considering he didn't have three centre-backs. Because considering on the left, we had in centre-back, you had Paulinho. Dropping down into central defence. You had Dragashan, who hasn't seemed like he's a Premier League standard defender. And then you also had Archie Gray as a right wing back, despite the fact he's a midfielder, and sometimes fills in at centre back, and sometimes fills in at right full back. So it didn't seem like he had the right players for the system. So it seems quite an odd choice to try and force that in.
Yeah, because we have to recall that Cristian Romero missed that game because he was sent off on last week or 2 weeks ago.
Last week. I think he's still got another 2 matches to go.
Yeah. So obviously he had to find some solutions to that problem, and I don't think it proved really relevant to put Paulinho and Archie Gray at these positions. And as you said, there was a problem in midfield, and Arsenal perfectly made the most of it.
We should probably say as well, it was a reaction from Arsenal because the day before Manchester City had closed the gap to them to just 2 points after beating Newcastle United 2-1. But we should probably have a look at the European fights generally. So you've got Arsenal 5 points ahead of Man City, but Man City have a game in hand. They're on 56. Villa are on 51 after they drew 1-1 against Leeds United. A late Tammy Abraham equaliser saving their blushes there. A lovely goal from Stack, a free kick from Stack early in that. Manchester United on last night beat Everton 1-0 at Everton, another Benjamin Šeško goal to put them fourth. They are on 48 points, so 3 points behind Villa. Chelsea on 45, as are Liverpool. Liverpool winning 1-0 at Forest with the last kick of the game. McAllister getting goal in the 7-minute stoppage time. And Chelsea threw away a goal lead over Burnley. And they conceded in stoppage time as well to draw 1-1 against Burnley. So that European fight, Villa are third on 51. Liverpool are sixth on 45. So 6 points separating those four teams. It feels like Chelsea are the most at risk currently, aren't they? Because that's 2 matches against promoted sides. They had a 2-goal lead against Leeds last week, threw it away, and they drew 2-2. They had a goal lead over Burnley and had another man sent off, this time for Fofana. And then Burnley equalised in stoppage time. So that's 4 points dropped against promoted sides. That's very sloppy. It does feel like that ill discipline, especially with the cards and everything, is eventually going to bite Chelsea where it hurts.
Yeah, because as you said, taking only 5 points from their last 3 games against Wolverhampton Wanderers, Leeds United, and Burnley, including Burnley Wolves already being relegated, or not officially, but we can expect them to be playing in the Championship next season. It's embarrassing for a team like Chelsea, whose ambitions is to play Champions League football next season. So it's too poor. And Manchester United, with their positive dynamic and another win last night thanks to Benjamin Sesko.
And if you, sorry to
Yeah.
jump in, but like if you
Yeah.
compare that Chelsea's last few matches to say Liverpool, who have not been impressive, but the last match they did manage to squeeze a 1-0 victory at Sunderland, very difficult place to play. They've then this week they very much squeezed last chance 1-0 victory over Forest, another very difficult place to play. So 2 victories where, understandably, had they not, people wouldn't be blinking an eye, because again, these are 2 very good sides at home. So
Yeah,
that's the kind of thing that shows that perhaps Liverpool will have more than Chelsea in this fight, because
Yeah.
Chelsea is showing a bit of naivety, bit of inexperience.
yeah, it's possible. And something else talking about in favor of Liverpool is that their schedule seems to me really easy for Liverpool, even if we have to note that they will play Champions League football. I think Liverpool have a good chance to go over Chelsea.
So, who do you think is the most at risk then? Because obviously we're saying between Villa, Man United, Chelsea, and Liverpool, 4 teams probably fighting out for the 3 Champions League spots. Who, in your opinion, is the one that's going to miss out?
I think Chelsea will miss out, but there is a key point talking about Liverpool. It will depend on the injury of Florian Wirtz, who was injured against Nottingham Forest. It seems that it wasn't really a bad injury following Slot's words after the game, but if he's to miss 2, 3, or 4 weeks of football, maybe it will cost Liverpool.
A quick word on Forest, because obviously heartbroken losing in such a way, but that's Vita Pereira's first league game in charge. They looked very secure defensively, and they had a wonderful victory midweek, 3-0 at Fenerbahce. That encouraging signs for Forest, although keeping in mind that they also have a European schedule might be to their detriment. But yeah, encouraging signs for Forest.
Yeah, it's encouraging, even if I do think West Ham will stay up at the place of Forest. It's obviously not a good result because they lost, but the performance is not can give hope to their fans. So yeah, it was a good result, even if you've mentioned the goal in the dying minutes from McAllister, who hadn't scored this season. He scored another goal a few minutes before, but it was ruled out by the VAR. So it will be a thrilling race to stay up between Tottenham, Forest, and Manchester United and West Ham. Sorry.
So elsewhere for the rest of the Premier League, on Saturday, Brighton finally got over their sticky patch, winning 2-0 at Brentford, where James Milner broke the Premier League appearance record for his 654th appearance. West Ham United and Bournemouth played out a 0-0, despite the fact West Ham created nearly 3 XG, 20 shots, but couldn't find a way through. Perhaps a missed opportunity there. Had they won that, they would have drawn level with Forest on points. On Sunday, Crystal Palace also got over their own poor form, beating Wolves 1-0 with Gisson scoring a goal in the last minute. Sunderland lost at home 3-1 against Fulham. Fulham's Raul Jimenez with a couple, including a penalty, which means he now has 13 from 13 penalties, a new record for the Premier League. And that's all the results for the Premier League. Okay, let's go over to Italia in Serie A, as you said with the title. Inter had the title handed to them in the palm of their hand. With Parma defeat, thank you very much. Parma defeating AC Milan. Right, there was a midweek action there as well, where AC Milan drew 1-1 with Como. Como have had an excellent week, drawing 1-1 at Milan, and then on Saturday, going to Turin and defeating Juventus 2-0. Quick word before we go over the others. So, quick word on AC Milan's week. Juventus's week. Because midweek, they lost in the Champions League playoff 5-2 at Galatasaray. And here they lost at home against Como 2-0. Juventus now 5th place, 4 points behind both Roma and Napoli, so falling behind in the race for the next year's Champions League spot. But they're now only 1 point ahead of Como and Atalanta. So Juventus are at real risk of having their season fall apart. No wins in 4 matches in all competition, 2 losses in a row in the league. They're at risk of losing European football altogether.
Yeah, because they had a great opportunity to make a big move by closing in on the Champions League qualifying spots, as you said, but also to distance themselves from Como and Atalanta. So we won this weekend, but against Como it was a logical defeat, as Juve never seemed capable of truly threatening Fabregas' side, were much more pragmatic. And I think there is a statistic that emphasizes this idea, is that Juve conceded a goal from their opponent's first shot on target for the 13th time this season, which is obviously intriguing.
But it's also not the first time that's happened. I think that was happening to Manchester City last year, where I think it was seven or eight matches in a row they conceded with their first shot on target.
Yeah, I remember that too. So it's obviously a disadvantage to start a game by conceding a goal.
Speaking of inexplicable defeats, AC Milan. So yeah, midweek drew 1-1 at home against Como, but then on Sunday they lost at home against Parma 1-0. Milan did have 67% of the possession, 25 shots, 6 of them on target. So perhaps should have come away with something, but they didn't. So that's 2 home matches against admittedly a good Como side and Parma, who admittedly have come into form recently. But whereas instead of getting 6 points, they've got 1. And so now they're 10 points behind Inter. That's the title done, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we already suspected that Inter would be crowned champions before that game. But Inter's victory combined with AC Milan's defeat against Parma certainly sealed the outcome of the championship.
I'm going to jump in quickly because what are the criticisms of Roma, who, for example, Roma this week on Sunday defeated Cremonese 3-0, but comically none of the goals coming from their strikers. No. Roma have looked fairly toothless up front several parts of the season, but you could say the same thing about AC Milan because they really struggle to score more than 1 goal in a game and quite often have to rely on very late goals as well. So are they sort of flattering to deceive? Is this them being second place? Are they the second best team in the league? Or is it just simply their defense? We should also point out that I think this defeat against Parma is only their 2nd of the season.
Yeah, because they lost to Cremonese on
the opening day.
On the opening day. Yeah, and which is more, I wouldn't say funny, but strange concerning AC Milan, is that their home record is worse than their away record, which is obviously a bad thing for a club which play at the San Siro with all the historical context and all the things we know about San Siro. So I think that at the end of the season, we can say that they will be kicking themselves from these points they lost against opponents who were well within their reach. And now their goal isn't to watch for the title, but to Roma and Napoli behind them because they are only 4 points behind.
Well, I should point out, so as good segue there. So Napoli were actually leading at Atalanta before the Bergames came from behind to win 2-1. So Atalanta 2, Napoli 1, whereas Roma defeated Cremonese 3-0. So Inter have 64 points, Milan have 54, Napoli have 50, Roma have 50. But like I say, there's that 4-point gap onto Juve on 46. It feels like now there's a bit of breathing space for Napoli and Roma, doesn't it? Because not only are Juve faltering, and they still have next midweek in the Champions League. But it also feels like now Juve are under pressure from Como and Atalanta. Atalanta, again, who've really turned their season behind, now are only 1 point behind fifth place. And unlikely as it is currently, Italy still could get a fifth Champions League spot. So all to play for Como and Atalanta.
Yeah, it will be really interesting to see the outcome of these two battles, because as we mentioned, the second place isn't already booked by Milan, and the fifth isn't from Juventus, especially since they have lost now 2 games in a row and drawn in their last 3. So the dynamic isn't on their side, and Como and Atalanta could
Make
make
a
the
very good
most of
point. The
it.
fact that
Yeah,
Como and Atalanta, the momentum's going upwards, whereas Juve is going
yeah,
downwards, and that needs to
yeah,
be addressed. Otherwise, they could be at real risk. Spalletti under pressure for the first time as Juve boss. We probably.
yeah, possibly.
Looking at the bottom, so actually let's go through some of the other results. Sassuolo defeated Hellas Verona on Friday, 3-0. Inter won at the undefeatable Lecce, or at least for the last couple of weeks. Inter had an easy 2-0 win, although they were made to wait. 2 late goals for Mkhitaryan and Akanji. Cagliari still picking up points, drawing 0-0 against Lazio, despite picking up a late red card. Genoa squeaking away from relegation, defeating Torino 3-0. And on Monday night, we had another victory for Fiorentina, defeating Pisa 1-0, and Bologna defeating Udinese 1-0. So I think we've talked about before, Hellas Verona, Pisa, probably both gone. 15 points. They are 9 points behind the chasing pack. But that means we're talking about 1 relegation spot. So Lecce currently occupy it on 24. Cremonese are ahead of them by 1 goal. 1 goal difference. Cremonese 24. Also at 24, Fiorentina up to 16th place. 24 points, but better goal difference. And then 3 points ahead of them are Torino and Genoa. Again, such an important victory for Genoa. Both of those teams on 27 points. So Genoa 27, Torino 27, Fiorentina, Cremonese, and Lecce on 24. 5 teams separated by 1 victory. You said before, Lecce, with your feel about going down. I say Cremonese. What do you think about Torino? Because something I've not mentioned is, out of all of those teams, Torino have the worst form and have the worst goal difference.
Yeah, but Torino have won a game in their last 5, which Cremonese hadn't. So
Fair.
maybe you are right about the fact that Cremonese will be relegated. They haven't won in I don't know 11 or 12 games in a row, which is obviously a terrible series. Fiorentina, I think, as we said in the first match days of the season, will stay in Serie A.
But it's like you say, like in the last month, we've seen Genoa register several victories. We've seen Fiorentina register several victories, and Lecce. But Torino, that's one. I think it's only 2 victories in the last 14 matches. Like, so they had a tough start to the season. They rebuilt in the middle, but they're slumping again. It does feel like they could potentially get caught in. But the reason I bring it up is because their goal difference is 6 worse than. Oh, sorry, no, it's 7 worse than Cremonese. So
Yeah.
I believe Cremonese and Torino play each other in about 3 or 4 weeks' time. So that hypothetically, if Cremonese could win that, then suddenly they do leapfrog Torino. So it's possible, and it does feel like Torino are still at risk.
Yeah, but it's really difficult to predict who will be relegated because of the thin gap between all these teams.
Absolutely. Right, we have to park Italy there. But now we're going over to Germany and the Bundesliga. So, yes, as it says, Dortmund are still in the title race, but for how long, it says in the title. Well, they drew at Leipzig 2-2. Dortmund actually did brilliantly, though, didn't they? Because they came from 2 goals down.
Yeah.
So Leipzig were leading 2-0 at halftime, both goals coming from Baumgartner. But then a Romelu own goal, followed by a Fabio Silva equaliser in the 5th minute of stoppage time. So Dortmund, again, it's that thing of positives and negatives. Negatives, they've dropped points. But positives, they actually really scrapped and deserve credit for coming from 2 goals down at Leipzig.
And they won a point. But yeah, this is something they have done several times this season, to win a point, to bring back something with them. But the fact is that now they are 8 points away from Bayern. They will play Bayern Munich on Saturday. So it's win or die, because if Bayern beat Dortmund on Saturday, the title race will be clearly over. Even if I do think, even if Dortmund were to beat Bayern, I don't think Bayern will.
It's too much of a gap. It feels like too many mistakes, doesn't it? Although we should probably point out there's a larger picture to this, because of course Dortmund, as unlikely as it was, were in the title race. But if you look below them, to them between Leipzig, they are 11 points ahead of fifth place. So they are looking very comfortable for Champions League football. Had they lost, it would have gone down to 8 points, and still a long way. But suddenly that opens the door for Leipzig. Whereas this feels like too many. This feels like actually Dortmund may well have sealed Champions League football with this.
Yeah, but that's what we have said many times. Dortmund, I think they are too big for the battle for the Champions League, because obviously they will qualify, but they aren't for the title race, and this is where the problem is. They need to strengthen to be able to finally beat Bayern.
But something to consider, though, is if they are comfortably second, if they're comfortably going to get the Champions League football next season, then they can concentrate on their European campaign and to see how deep they can go into that competition. It's actually a perfect week for Bayern, because they were the only team in the top 6 to win. Dortmund drew at Leipzig. Hoffenheim drew at Köln 2-2. Stuttgart, brilliant match at Heidenheim, but they did drop points against bottom of the table Heidenheim, a 3-3 draw. They actually came from behind twice. To draw that late on. And in fact, Leverkusen down in 6th place. They lost at Union Berlin. Bayer Leverkusen, they need to stop these kind of results. Otherwise, this could really. This is the reason why they're not in the top 4. They keep losing against mid and lower table opposition.
Yeah, and today I think it will be a 3 teams race for the 3rd place. Maybe 14 if we include Leverkusen to Hoffenheim to Leverkusen, because it's only 7 points between them. But
as we discussed, 7 points is a lot at this.
It's a lot, especially since Bundesliga has only 34 match days compared to Serie A, Liga, or Premier League. So, and if they can't make the most of the poor results from their opponents, they will stay 6, because I don't think they will slip to 7th or 8th place, but
that's a sizable gap as well. So European football, very, very much the interesting part for the Bundesliga, but as is the relegation battle. As we've spoken in recent weeks, Mainz's incredible return to form has seen them climb to 13th place, although I do believe they lost this week. I've completely lost them. Where's Mainz?
They are 13th in the,
they drew at home.
the league.
They drew at home into Hamburg, sorry. So yes, but St. Pauli, out of absolutely nowhere, St. Pauli registered their 2nd win in 3 matches. Another team we assumed were going to be relegated with Mainz. St. Pauli was 17th against 16th, defeating Werder Bremen 2-1, and they leapfrogged them. Now, people watching this may not realize what a big deal that is, but 17th place is relegation, 16th is the is the relegation playoff. So the fact that St. Pauli are even in that conversation is impressive. But I wanted to open up to the relegation battle for the rest of the Bundesliga, because St. Pauli, like I say, a couple of wins in the last few matches. The teams above them, Wolfsburg, no wins in their last 7. Borussia Mönchengladbach, no wins in their last 7. Mainz, we've already discussed climbing the table. Köln have also had a couple of victories in recent weeks. So it feels like Mönchengladbach and Wolfsburg are at risk of being caught by St. Pauli. And these are big football clubs, which, again, international viewers may not realize this, but Mönchengladbach, Wolfsburg, these are sizable clubs. These are former winners of the league. Yeah.
And if you take a look at the table, you will notice that St. Pauli are the only team to have actually win games this past 5 weeks. which is obviously
in the bottom five, we should say.
Yeah, in the bottom five, which is obviously something incredible in the Champions League. But yeah, the fact that Gladbach or Wolfsburg could be relegated is it could be a earthquake at the scale of the Bundesliga.
It could be a similar thing to Schalke, if people remember the story of Schalke, who are currently
Yeah.
languishing in the Zweite Bundesliga.
Or Tottenham in the Premier League, if they were.
Elsewhere in the Bundesliga, some other results to bring you. So, like I say, Mainz drew with Hamburger 1-1. Wolfsburg lost at home against Augsburg. In fact, they led twice before Augsburg won in the last minute of stoppage time to steal all the points there. Freiburg, it was a great week for Freiburg as they try and close the gap to Leverkusen. They defeated Mönchengladbach 2-1. And yeah, like I say, Heidenheim currently bottom of the table, 6 points from safety, and yet managed a 3-3 draw against Stuttgart. That is the reason why Stuttgart aren't challenging for Europe this year.
Yeah, and I think they were 2-0 up at some moment. So it's a bad result, of course, for Stuttgart. The only positive point for them is that Dortmund, Hoffenheim, and Leipzig have also let points slip this weekend.
Right, let's park the Bundesliga there and go over to Spain. Oh, what a lovely Euro trip we're having. Just remind people that are watching this, the European Soccer Show, if you want to send us questions online, feel free to do so, and we may read them out if they're appropriate. But we are in La Liga now. And of course, the headlines news is that for the third week in a row, we have a new leader at the top of La Liga after Real Madrid lost at Osasuna. So Osasuna 2, Real Madrid 1. Osasuna taking the lead in the first half through a penalty before Vinicius Jr. Equalised in the second half. And another late goal for Raul Garcia, giving Osasuna the victory. Now, this sounds shocking, but actually, I want to sort of highlight Osasuna's turnaround because that is 4 wins in the last 6 matches. They've been threatened with relegation until about 5-6 weeks ago, and yet they currently have the best form in the league. It's an astonishing turnaround, and credit should go to the manager because this is the same manager that started the season with them. So it's been a tremendous turnaround. That's Alessio Lischi, for those who are wondering. So yeah, astonishing turnaround and almost unbelievable, actually.
Yeah, and when you take a look at their home record, you can guess why they are so well placed in the league for a club like that, because they are the 5th best team at home this season, and this time to beat Real Madrid, it shows that it's very difficult to win at El Sardar, which is their stadium. And just to have a word on Real Madrid, it's another sluggish performance. We have said it many times in the past weeks, and they finally ended up paying the price against Osasuna, because I don't think relying on individual talent as they do and some kinds of fits is sustainable in the long term. And yeah, they paid it, especially when Kylian Mbappe doesn't score. And we have said it, I don't know, I think it was in autumn when he didn't score for 4, 5, or 6 games. It was the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good point. Osasuna, unlikely to challenge for European competition, but we have seen, particularly in La Liga this year, certain clubs go on this a run of good form, and it really they climb the table quite extremely. So in the case of like Celta Vigo, Espanyol. So Osasuna currently 9th, 6 points behind 6th place. But outside shots of European football. But again, this is an insane conversation to be having. I mean, we expected, say, Real Sociedad to catch up because of the strength of their squad. But Osasuna, on the other hand, this has kind of come out of nowhere. What do you think tactically the reason why they beat? Did you watch the highlights for this?
Yeah, I watched.
What do you think was the difference regarding tactical setup? Because as you say, Real Madrid having such reliance on individuals, What was it about Osasuna's setup that you think did so well?
I do think they play with a lot of intensity regarding what I saw about that game. They were really interesting in the takes on. They won duels against their opponents, and they were more precise. We can notice that Ante Budimir scored another goal. He's 13th or 14th so far this season. So he's having an extraordinary season. And for a team like Osasuna, who just fight to stay in La Liga, it's impressive to have to be able to rely on a striker who can score that many goals.
Well, good week for Barcelona then. Top of the table, they defeated Levante 3-0. Goals from Marc Bernal, De Jong and Fermin Lopez. A nice straightforward victory for them there. An excellent week for Villarreal as well. They've sort of stuttered of late, but midweek they defeated Levante 1-0, and then this week and on Sunday defeating Valencia 2-1. That means they are now 9 points ahead of Real Betis in 5th. So not only do they look great for Champions League football, but like we discussed, having a real fight for third place, because they're now 3 points ahead of Atletico Madrid, who, despite beating Espanyol 4-2 at home, are still looking underwhelming.
Yeah, it's been a really good week for Villarreal, as you said, and the fact, I don't know if Villarreal will play Atletico Madrid before the end of the season. I don't remember if they have played twice.
I don't, to be honest.
And it will be very interesting. The thing is that Atletico they will play tonight against Bruges, and it will be interesting to see if they are to qualify against the Belgium side in the Champions League, because it could have an influence of the end of the season, because of course playing round of 16 or maybe quarterfinals in the Champions League, it will take us a lot of energy, and Villarreal, they don't have any other competition to play apart from La Liga, so it can count at the end of the day.
I completely forgot about that. Who did Bodo Glimt beat last week in the Champions League?
Inter Milan.
Yeah, I completely forgot to mention that, the fact that Inter lost at Bodo Glimt, which was...
And they lost 3-1. So,
yeah, they're really at risk as well. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, that's beside the point. This is not a Champions League conversation. Okay, some other results to talk about. So, Athletic Club, again, sort of pushing for that last European spot, defeating Elche 2-1. Real Sociedad, possibly the most bizarre match of the whole weekend in any league. They drew 3-3 with bottom of the table Real Oviedo. Oviedo, who are not known for scoring goals.
No.
Oviedo took a 2-goal lead. It was 0-0 at half-time, first of all. Then Oviedo took a 2-goal lead within 7 minutes of the restart. Then Sociedad managed to put a goal back in the 87th minute. They equalised. Then in the 90th minute, took the lead. And then in the 3rd minute of stoppage time, conceded again. So, yeah, sort of Real Sociedad being their own worst enemies in this context.
Yeah, it was, as I said, a crazy match between them two. And despite being bottom of the league, we have to note that Real Oviedo showed great character by not letting their heads drop after conceding 3 goals, which is, and most importantly, away from home, because they were playing at the Reale Arena, which is a good performance. Too late to stay up, I think, because they are 7 points away from Mallorca and 8 points from 17th place Elche. But it was a good performance from them.
Elsewhere, because before we move away from La Liga, I want to sort of highlight that relegation battle again, much like we did in Serie A. We also had Real Betis 1, Rayo Vallecano 1. We had Celta Vigo 2, Mallorca 0, another defeat for Mallorca. And we also had on last night, Alaves to Girona 2. With that draw for Girona, they are now 6 points ahead of the last relegation spot. At the bottom is Oviedo on 17, Levante on 18, and then there's a 6-point gap between them and Mallorca. So much like Serie A, we think the bottom two are probably going to go down at this point. Just not enough wins. But then between Mallorca, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12th. So you got between 12th and 18th, there are 6 points separating Girona, Sevilla, Getafe, Rayo Vallecano, Valencia, Elche, and Mallorca. Elche, despite the wonderful start to the season, Elche, again, so many comparisons to Serie A, that almost like Cremonese, seeming safe, seeming like they're looking up, but such a terrible run of form, and they're massively at risk. And so you had these good performances for, say, I've lost it now. Like Sevilla winning at Getafe was a huge deal, because had Sevilla not done that, they would have only been 2 points ahead of Mallorca, and now they're 5. So suddenly all the teams above Elche and Mallorca picking up just the occasional win, and they're just pulling slightly clear. But what's your opinion of this? Who are you most concerned for between, say, Mallorca, Elche, Valencia, Rayo Vallecano? They're the ones within immediate striking distance.
Yeah, Elche are worrying me because, as you said, they have been in free fall for now a good month and a half. I think they are currently 17th, only 1 point away from Mallorca. Their last victory dates back from December 21st. So their dynamic is awful, and they absolutely need to earn some points if they want to avoid relegation. But it will be difficult. But the good point for them, the positive point, is that with just 1 point, you can gain 1 or 2 places in the table. So every point will count.
Absolutely. Right, let's leave La Liga there. And finally, in this European spot, we are going to talk about Ligue 1. First of all, we noticed that top of the table, Lens lost at home against Monaco. This, again, a strange result. This was the first match on Saturday. Lens took a 2-goal lead for goals from Edouard and Thauvin. And then, in the space of 10 minutes, between the 60th and 70th minute, they conceded 3 times through Balogun, Zakaria, and Ansu Fati. So despite the fact Monaco played midweek against Paris Saint-Germain, they somehow found the reserves to turn the match around and hold on for the win.
Yeah, Monaco, they were impressive against Lens. As you said, coming from behind against that team at Bollert, which is Lens' home stadium, is really a feat. And yeah, this is a performance which is all the more remarkable given they faced PSG in the Champions League. They almost had a good result against them, and have countless players out for injury. I don't know how many. I think 6 or 7 starters are injured, including Eric Dyer, now Crépin Diatta, Marnes Agliouche, a lot of important Salissou, a lot of important players, even Radecki, who they recruited last week. So during the last transfer market. So it was a bad day for Lens because, of course, PSG's home win 3-0 against Metz allowed them to become leader again.
We should probably point out, this is kind of the first time that Lens have disappointed, right? Because they've been so on it all season. They've been near perfect, keeping up with Paris Saint-Germain. This is the first time it's felt like they've actually been disappointing, especially considering they had a 2-goal lead and they were in control of the match. It felt like this was the first time that they let it slip.
Yeah, and the most important thing is that it's difficult to explain why they slipped that way, because they were well in the game, and in the space of like 8 or 10 minutes, they let Monaco scored 3 times. Even if Monaco are better in the pass mounts, it's it's a bad result.
What's been the turnaround for Monaco? Because it's not just this match. Despite losing against Paris Saint-Germain, they did themselves justice. In the past 4-5 weeks, they've returned to form, undefeated in 5, 3 wins in those 5 matches as well. It feels like they've got a late surge to try and regain perhaps a European qualification.
I would say the draw against Juventus in the Champions League could be the start of this dynamic, even if we have to recall that they were eliminated from the Coupe de France by Strasbourg at the beginning of February. They are on a good dynamic, and which started against Juventus.
So some other scores to take you through. Let's talk about quick word on Marseille, who were undone by a couple at Brest. 2-0 on Friday to the home side at Brest, which means that Marseille are now winless in 4, only 2 draws in that as well. It's now not only are they at risk of not qualifying for the Champions League, but now suddenly they're looking behind them because there's a 5-point gap between them and Lyon in 3rd, but there's only a 3-point gap between them and Lille and Rennes in 5th and 6th. So how concerned should Marseille be, and when do you see them turning this ship around?
This is a question I think I could answer on next week, because on Sunday they will face Lyon. So it's a really important game for both of the teams.
It's interesting. So if they win that'll be 2 points to 3rd place, and actually the Champions League qualification is all the way back on. But if they lose and one of the other clubs beneath them wins, suddenly the gap is 0.
Yeah. This is why you should not miss the Olympico, which is the name of the game between Lyon and Marseille on Sunday, because it will be one of the most heated in recent years, because the stakes are really high.
Oh yeah, it's going to be fascinating. Although, speaking of stakes being high, Lyon, having won 13 matches in a row, were undone at Strasbourg. So no new record for them this time. But it's hardly, this was going to happen at some point. They're playing a very good Strasbourg side who have rediscovered their form under Gary O'Neill. And again, much like Monaco, making a late surge for European qualification. This is just a blip for Lyon, right? There wasn't anything particularly wrong with this performance. It was just perhaps a bridge too far.
Yeah, Strasbourg were simply better than Lyon. They brought more intensity and quality to the game. And the fact is that Lyon are struggling offensively with numerous injuries, including Pavel Sulch, one contracted against Strasbourg. So during the game, they played with only one forward, which was Hendrik, and who hadn't played very well, which compromises, of course, their chances of scoring. So now they will need to focus on the game against Marseille. As I said, it will be a really difficult game for them. But if they were to just bring a point home, it would be a great result for Lyon, because they would be assured to have 5 points ahead of Marseille after that.
Well, 5 points ahead of Marseille, and like I say, Marseille only 6 points ahead of 8th place Monaco. So all to play for in the final stages. Quick word on the other results. So Toulouse drew with Paris FC 1-1. Paris Saint-Germain, as mentioned, they defeated Metz 3-0, but that was predictable. Goals from Doué, Barcola, and Gisela Ramos. And on Sunday, Rennes defeated Auxerre at Auxerre 3-0. Amiens lost at home against Lille, Olivier Giroud goal being the only one there. A rare victory for Nantes, defeating Le Havre 2-0, I believe, which means that Nantes have caught, again, for those of you who aren't aware, Nantes are currently 17th in the relegation zone, but they are now tied with Auxerre in 16th, which is the playoff relegation. The relegation playoff. So yes, so managed to catch that up, although it does look like the bottom 3 are very much going down. Great match between Nice and Lorient, 3-3. Nice had the lead, had a 2-goal lead before Lorient got it back, and then had the lead for a third time before Lorient scored a late equaliser. Great match there. Yeah, and that's it for League Earn and our European roundup. So, all that's left for the European Soccer Show is to talk about the things we may have missed. And do I have a list for you. Leo, what might we have missed?
You might have missed Sheffield Wednesday relegation because after losing to Sheffield United this weekend, they became the fastest team ever to be relegated from the Football League, sitting 7 points below the safety line with 13 games to play. And they are 38 points behind Oxford United and have only managed to win one game this season.
Yeah, so, it's such a sad situation, obviously, because with Sheffield Wednesday, for those of you who aren't familiar, one of the oldest clubs in world football, the ownership situation meant that they were put into administration. Yeah. The ownership was forced out just to pay wages. They were forced to sell basically all their players. So even if they didn't have all these points deductions for going into administration and missing payments and so on, they would still only have, I think, 11 points on the table. So they would still be going down anyway. It's a sad situation, but hopefully only way is up for them. Anything else we might have missed?
I have one thing, but go on, Daniel. What do you...
I've got a few. Just like little things to keep you up to date. So, for example, also in the Championship, you may have missed that Wrexham defeated Ipswich 5-3. Great match. Ipswich, who are one of the favourites for relegation promotion, back to the Premier League, which means Wrexham, with a quarter of the season left, next week means that we have literally into the final quarter of the season for the Championship. Wrexham are in a playoff position, which is very exciting. Just wanted to keep you up to date with that. What else do you have?
You know that this weekend Napoli played Atalanta, and while they were, a Napoli fan was stabbed by his wife, who believed her husband has insulted her, when in fact these words were directing at the referee. So fortunately, the man's life is not in danger, but it's, I wouldn't say a funny story, but
it's, if he's okay, then I think it's a little bit funny. Just also to the fact that, like, his wife stabbed. Oh, never mind. Right, I'm not going to get into that. Yeah. Because other things you may have missed. Fun weekend in the Scottish Premiership where Hearts squeaked out a victory, but also Celtic lost at home to Hearts' Edinburgh rivals, Hibs. So Celtic lost at home. Rangers drew away. So the big lads are dropping points left, right, and centre. Hearts will be keeping their lead at the top of the Premiership for at least another week. The last thing I want to show you that you might have missed. So I sent you a link to a goal. I want you to watch it. So you may now watch the link I sent you, Leo, and we're going to get your reaction. So for those of you who aren't privy to this, we're going to go to the Australian A-League, where Wellington Phoenix played Auckland. And the first goal was an astonishing own goal, which Leo is now going to be watching, and we're going to see his natural reaction.
Wait, I'm on it.
You on it?
Waiting for the end of the Scream 7 ad on YouTube.
Fair enough. Okay, so for those, I'm going to sort of paint the picture for everyone else. So this own goal is from the Wellington Phoenix goalkeeper. Okay, so Auckland cleared.
What a header!
It's astonishing. For those of you, just go and watch it. It's a little bit unbelievable. So, yeah, Wellington Phoenix, Auckland, 0-0. Auckland clear the ball from their own penalty area. Ball way down into the Wellington half. The keeper is sort of 5 yards outside of his own box, sweeping up. He completely misjudges his header or where he is. It hits the back of his head, and so essentially he heads the ball into his own net from 25 yards. It's beautiful. For those who don't know, they then went on to lose that match 5-0, and a goalkeeper was substituted at half-time. Bless him. His name is Josh Oluwayemi. Do you want to have a guess at what Premier League club he trained at before going to Australia? I'll give you a clue. It's funny.
I would say Tottenham.
Yes, it's the Spurs. Right. That's it for the things you might have missed. Anything you want? Do you have anything for trivia?
I don't. Do you?
Yeah, I've got one. I've actually got a lot, but you know what? I'm going to save them for another week. It's a fun one. I'll tell you what. I've got two. I'll give you two. One's a quick one. Which team in the top 5 leagues? Which team has conceded the most goals? Which team out of all the top 5 European leagues has the worst defense?
In the top.
So, like in the top 5, the major 5
Top
European
5.
leagues.
Okay. I don't know. Do you know, can you tell me in
Well,
which
it's a tie. It's a tie. One's English,
Oh.
one's French.
Maybe FC Nantes have conceded a lot of goals.
It's Metz. So actually, the
Metz,
strange
okay.
thing is, out of the teams involved, only 2 of them are bottom of the table, which is really strange. So 3, sorry, there are 6 involved at the top 5 because there are draws. So tied for first place is Metz and Burnley, who have conceded 52 goals. But Metz have only played 23 matches as opposed to Burnley's 27. Tied for third, it's Heidenheim and Wolves, so bottom of the Bundesliga, bottom of the Premier League. Both have conceded 51. But then, kind of astonishingly, both the other teams, tied for 5th, have conceded 49. It's Wolfsburg and Frankfurt. So Frankfurt,
yeah, I would say Frankfurt
have the 5th worst defense in the entire of Europe, which is astonishing. But yes, the other one I was going to ask, which is sort of you may have missed this. We're going to go to the Vanarama National League, which is the 5th tier of English football. It's the first. It's the league underneath the professional football pyramid, and we're going to go to Gateshead, which is a place very close to Newcastle United, where a new record has been set for the longest away match ever. So they played at Truro at the weekend. For context, Gateshead have lost 15 matches in a row. And they just went to visit Truro, which is in Cornwall, or near Cornwall. I'm actually not sure what county it's in. Do you want to guess how far the journey was there and back? I've got it in both miles and kilometres. So the longest ever away day in English history. How far do you think this away day is? Actually, I think this is the longest away match in league history, if you're just counting sort of not having to jump on a plane.
I read, I don't know if it was that, but I've read something about 4,000 kilometers.
Well, unfortunately, I would say 4,000 kilometers from the UK is probably Russia. Like we're a very small place comparatively.
But no, I don't know.
So again, Gateshead lost 15 matches in a row. Their fans travelled 924 miles, or basically just under 1,000 miles, or 1,500 kilometers, to go and play at Truro, and they won, which is very nice. They took 150 odd fans, nearly 1,000 miles, which is one of the longest. It took more than 24 hours to get there in bad.
Incredible.
Yeah. Bravo to them.
Spot. Yeah.
But yes, that brings us to the end of the European Soccer Show. Next week, gosh, we are going into the final quarter for a lot of the lower league tables in England. We're going into the final. I think we're going into the final 10 matches for most of the European tables leagues as well. And we'll also have the next round of the Champions League to discuss because of the playoffs will have completed. So lots of things to be distracted by this week. Thank you so much for joining me, Leo.
Thank you, Daniel, as ever. Thank you to everyone who's watching.
Thank you who are currently watching the live stream, watching it back. Make sure to follow us on all the socials. Feel free to send us questions if you do watch the live stream, and we'll try to answer them if it's worth it. But until then, thank you so much. Have a great week, everybody, and goodbye from us.
Goodbye, everybody.